Good morning. We find ourselves in the midst of a GOP manufactured default crisis because House Republicans have chosen to try and hold our economy, our small businesses, everyday Americans hostage to unreasonable ransom demands that many of their members continue to put in the public domain. The extreme MAGA Republican position continues to be, for many of their members, that we need draconian cuts to Medicaid for disabled children and seniors throughout the country. We need draconian cuts to education, draconian cuts to health care, draconian cuts to law enforcement, draconian cuts to homeland security, and draconian cuts to food and nutrition programs that benefit millions of food insecure Americans. That's the Default on America Act, and that's the position that many extreme MAGA Republicans continued to articulate throughout the week. Take it or leave it. Essentially, saying to the American people that there are only two options on the table as far as the right-wing extreme ideologues see it. The Default on America Act that will be devastating for millions of everyday Americans across the country, or default, which would have catastrophic consequences for the economy, trigger a job-killing recession, crash the stock market, which is going to hurt millions of retirees in their golden years, and skyrocket costs all across the country. Default on America, extreme MAGA Republican legislation, or an actual default. That's an untenable position. But many extreme MAGA Republicans in the House continue to say that's their bottom line, which is not a reasonable negotiating or governmental position. It is hostage-taking. And I think it's going to be important for the American people to understand why we are where we are right now. It's because you've got Republicans in the House of Representatives who have made the determination that we are going to jam our extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people using the threat of default in order to get our way. That's irresponsible governance. And over the next week or two, it's certainly my hope that calmer, reasonable heads will prevail on the other side of the aisle, and they will veer off this course toward a dangerous default. Questions?
Thank you, Congressman. Now, yesterday, Cori Bush, he introduced a bill calling for $14 trillion in reparations for Black Americans. However, critics are concerned that the bill won't pass due to GOP opposition. So my question to you is, why do you think so many people on the right oppose the call for reparations?
Well, I haven't taken a look at the bill that Representative Bush introduced, so I can't comment on its merits up or down. But we know generally that the American people want to see opportunity created in every single zip code. That's my objective in this position that I'm privileged to hold. We want to uplift everyone and, of course, make sure that we deal with injustice, whether that's racial injustice, social injustice, or economic injustice, wherever it's found.
There's reporting out today from Politico that one of Speaker Emerita Pelosi's family members has been assisting Senator Feinstein with her return to the Capitol. From what you've seen so far from Senator Feinstein returning to the Capitol, are you confident that she can do the job of senator? And any comments on the relationship between those two families, Senator Pelosi and Senator Feinstein?
Well, I have nothing but the greatest degree of respect both for the Pelosi family, as well as for Senator Feinstein.
You said recently that 2 weeks is not enough time to negotiate a responsible debt limit deal. Does the president leaving the country add any additional complications to that?
What was the comments that you indicated that I made?
The president leaving the country.
Right. No, the precursor. Just wanted to make sure that I understood.
2 weeks is not enough time for a responsible deal.
No, I don't believe I have made that statement. What I've said is that it's not responsible for extreme MAGA Republicans to adopt a take-it-or-leave-it approach in a situation where we've got divided government, and that it's important to do what the country has always done under Democratic presidents and Republican presidents, which is to make sure that America always pays our bills without partisanship, gamesmanship, or brinksmanship. At the same time, we can have a conversation about what the appropriate degree of spending or revenue or investment should be made to protect the health, safety, and economic well-being of the American people. We're in a situation now where that has to be done over the next few weeks to avoid a catastrophic default. So in that 2-week period of time, we don't have the luxury of partisan gamesmanship, brinksmanship, or the effort to try to extract deep, painful cuts related to the American people in order to avoid a default.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a reaction to the Durham report, and are you concerned that this could cause a lack of trust in the FBI moving forward?
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to closely review the Durham report, but as far as I can tell, this is another example, generally, of right-wing conservatives in terms of their reaction to it, trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. And this is what the extreme MAGA Republicans on the Judiciary Committee and on the Oversight Committee have been doing throughout the year. They keep promising big, blockbuster, bombshell developments that turn out to be nothing. And all we've seen from extreme MAGA Republicans in terms of their oversight work are fishing expeditions, big, baseless conspiracy theories, and efforts to protect the insurrectionist in chief who they continue to bend the knee to down at Mar-a-Lago.
Leader Jeffries, Basil Gentleman, Next Star. Want to get your reaction to yesterday. Republicans held their press conference talking about debt ceiling talks and how it's been progressing. At one point, someone had asked about work requirements, and when they brought up a quote from the president saying that he does not want anything with consequence attached to it, Republicans laughed at the idea. Even Senator John Barrasso saying, and you could hear him saying "loser" from a reference to the president. What's your reaction to when Republicans are saying things like that? And then as a follow-up and a secondary question, just a reaction to the Police Act that's going to be voted on.
Well, it's not clear to me why extreme MAGA Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene or George Santos and others aren't taking the possibility of default seriously. Why are they laughing? When the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of the American people are at risk because of an effort by right-wing extremists to drive us toward a dangerous default. We need responsible individuals to do what has always been done here in the United States of America under Democratic presidents and Republican presidents, including 3 times by Democrats during the presidency of Donald Trump, which is to make sure we avoid a catastrophic default and pay our bills. Period. Full stop. And the notion that extreme MAGA Republicans are trying to impose so-called work requirements when work requirements actually exist under current federal law And it's not clear what exactly they are trying to accomplish other than peddle their right-wing ideology, tells you all you need to know about their legislative posture. It's not a reasonable position that they have adopted. This is hostage taking, and they are trying to extract ransom notes in order to avoid a default. Now, in 2018, 145 House Republicans voted against so-called work requirements in an amendment to the Farm Bill that would have imposed such requirements on SNAP recipients. 145 Republicans, including the current Speaker of the House. So the notion that they want to now lecture us in the context of trying to avoid a default about so-called work requirements is extreme and irresponsible. If they want to have a discussion about SNAP, about TANF, about Medicaid, or other issues, let's have that discussion during the normal legislative process or in the context of the Farm Bill. But we've continued to make clear as House Democrats that so-called extreme work requirements that these MAGA Republicans want to try to impose as a ransom note are a non-starter. Period. Full stop. In terms of their messaging legislation with respect to law enforcement later on today on the House floor, how dare these extreme MAGA Republicans try to lecture anyone about standing with law enforcement? Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, they want to defund the FBI. The extreme MAGA Republicans want to defund the Department of Justice. The extreme MAGA Republicans voted to eliminate, in the Default on America Act, tens of thousands of law enforcement positions across the country, jeopardizing the public safety of the American people. The extreme MAGA Republicans, in this so-called resolution that will be on the floor today, don't even acknowledge the Capitol Police officers who risk their lives each and every day to protect the American people, our staff members, and members of Congress, and who fought hard to protect us and save our democracy when facing violent insurrectionists on January 6th. This group of extreme MAGA Republicans want to lecture us about law and order when they have become the party of lawlessness and disorder? Get lost.
Mr. Leader, just generally, what are your thoughts on the Republicans holding that testimony, or they're hearing testimony from the FBI whistleblowers, just generally? And I have a second question as well.
Again, the conspiracy theorists on the other side of the aisle continue to, peddle fantasies about the deep state, continue to attack the FBI and federal law enforcement officials, and it's all in service of defending the insurrectionist in chief, who they continue to bend the knee to, and who apparently is the leading Republican candidate for president, despite all that we have seen over the last several years. They can't find someone else, someone more reasonable, rational, someone who behaves like a normal human being. They can't find someone else. And so it's a sad state of affairs in terms of who has taken over the Republican Party. This is not Bob Dole's Republican Party. It's not John McCain's Republican Party. This is not Mitt Romney's Republican Party. It's George Santos' Republican Party, and it's Marjorie Taylor Greene's Republican Party. And how do we know that? Yesterday, they defended George Santos, defended him, protected him, shielded George Santos from accountability. They don't even want an up or down vote on expulsion. for George Santos, this is not an ordinary situation. This is one of the most extraordinary situations that the Congress has ever seen in our nation's history. George Santos lied about his entire life, lied about his jobs, lied about his finances, lied about his charitable work, lied about his professional background, lied about his education, lied about his mother perishing during September 11th, lied about his Jewish heritage. His whole life is a fiction, and it was made up so that he could get elected to Congress under false pretenses. And, by the way, he pled guilty to criminal conduct in Brazil. And notwithstanding that entire parade of horribles of a life resume, George Santos was protected and defended and coddled by House Republicans, many of whom, including so-called moderates in New York, promised accountability, but the first opportunity they got to prove whether they meant what they said, these so-called moderates voted with the extremists, as they always do, to shield and defend and coddle George Santos. This is who the Republican Party, unfortunately, has become at this moment in time.
And then just quickly, a second question on the debt ceiling. Is there anything in the Republican plan that Democrats would be willing to accept, such as rescinding unspent COVID money, for example?
The plan that is most reasonable for the American people is to avoid a catastrophic default and to make sure America pays our bills, while at the same time we've indicated, and as is taking place right now, led by the White House, we can have a conversation about the budget, appropriations, spending, revenue, the investments that should be made to protect the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of the American people. So I don't want to get out ahead of the White House in terms of the ongoing negotiations. I'm thankful to President Biden for his leadership in continuing to move us to a better place. I look forward, to following closely the ongoing discussions that are occurring and will over the next few days, and we'll see what comes back to us. Third row. So I think it's an incredible contrast that on Wednesday, extreme MAGA Republicans in the House defend, coddle, and continue to play footsie with serial fraudster George Santos. And on Thursday, they want to impeach the President of the United States of America, the FBI director who was appointed by a Republican president, and the Homeland Security Secretary. And who is the face of this effort? Marjorie Taylor Greene. House Republicans have increasingly become the party of Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and George Santos. That is a very sad state of affairs. Last question.
You met yesterday with Governor Kathy Hochul. She's obviously advocating for assistance for New York. Do you have any sense of how realistic it is to expect that Congress would actually step forward with any of that, and what avenue would that take? And if you'll allow me a second question about the man on the billboard beside you, what is the path forward now that this has been sent to the Ethics Committee?
Well, it was a very positive conversation that I had with Governor Hochul. Many of us within the New York delegation are concerned with the growing dynamics in terms of the situation that we confront in New York. And I've heard from people all across the spectrum back at home in New York that we really need to increase the amount of federal resources provided to New York so that New York City and our state can continue to provide for individuals who are seeking asylum or who have fled potential persecution in other countries with the humanity consistent with who we are as a country and certainly who we've been in the city of New York. But this cannot be done without federal assistance, and we certainly are going to continue to aggressively push for that assistance, and it needs to come to New York City sooner rather than later. You had a question about Santos?
Next steps now that the
Yeah.
ethics has been referred to the ethics committee. Is there anything else you can do on the House floor?
This is what is so cynical about the extreme MAGA Republican effort to shield a serial fraudster from accountability. All Democrats asked for was an up or down vote. But they didn't even want to provide the voters of the 3rd Congressional District in New York, the voters across America, with an up or down vote. The Ethics Committee has had the George Santos matter for months. Months. So what are you referring to the Ethics Committee? It's already before the Ethics Committee. This was an effort to bury accountability for a serial fraudster. Why? Perhaps it's because extreme MAGA Republicans actually need George Santos's vote. He is critical to their ability to govern. George Santos was the deciding vote in passing the Default on America Act. The deciding vote. And to me, that explains, in part, the actions that have been taken by this extreme MAGA Republican majority. Moving forward, we'll continue to explore ways for this egregious, extraordinary situation represented by George Santos's continued presence in the Congress to be dealt with the accountability that the voters of the 3rd Congressional District in New York are demanding and that the American people are demanding as well. Thank you.